Hey, Dare to Hear listeners. This is just a little pre recorded message for you before we get into the actual podcast with Rob Kasha today. I actually recorded Rob for a two-part episode earlier this month, about 4 weeks ago, and we had some issues. It disappeared. It didn't record, it didn't save, we couldn't find it anywhere. And so we had rescheduled for today to actually re-record those episodes. However, in light of everything that's going on with the coronavirus, Rob was not able to be at home because all of his children are at home and he couldn't have a quiet room in the house. So we had to actually record from his car as he sat outside one of his favorite coffee shops using the Wi-Fi. So there are moments when in the video, if you're watching on YouTube, that he freezes, but the audio keeps going. And then there's a couple times when the audio cuts out. But it is a really powerful episode that I would love for you to just hang with us, hang tight, and stay all the way to the end, because we begin to talk about how we need to be filled with the awe and wonder of God and not allow fear any space. And in fact, this was what the original episode was about. And Rob was actually scheduled to go live with this podcast with me today and next week. So I'm going to come up with something for next week, but this episode is so powerful in light of everything that we're facing. I really wanted to get it out there. And then I just really want to encourage you to find Rob on social media and his website. He gives those links and they'll be in the show notes as well. So thank you. Bear with us. I promise you it'll be worth it. And I look forward to joining you next week on another episode. I have called you, dare to hear. Hello, I'm Debbie Kitterman, and welcome to this episode of Dare to Hear the podcast, where we equip you and challenge you to dare to hear the voice of God. Well, today I'm delighted to interview Rob Kasha. He's a writer, speaker, church pioneer, a cancer beater, and he and his amazing wife, Angie, and their family have ministered for over 25 years and spoken around the globe. Their passion is to equip and encourage people to be all that God has created and redeemed them for. They currently reside in Northern California. It's a beautiful place to write devotionals with Jesus. Rob is available for speaking engagements periodically and for coffee anytime. And in fact, Rob, you're sitting outside your favorite coffee shop right now, aren't you?
I am one of them. Yes, I have
Yes.
a whole map of them. Yes,
Yes. Well, welcome and thank you for coming on Dare to Hear the podcast.
it's my absolute honor.
Well, I
Thank
want
you
to
so
tell
much.
people that we actually had recorded this episode earlier because I'm all about authenticity and being, real. And so there was an error on my end. So we're doing a redo. That's why you're in your car and not in your office at home, because, with the current state of our affairs right now, the kids are out of school and your house. So I want to talk about your book, Wonderful. And I love this. Actually, my friend gave this to me as a Christmas gift, and it just came out, didn't it, at the end of last year, like
Uh,
November?
yeah, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a devotional book. I really love it. But one of the things, so with the can you talk to me just a little bit about the title? I know I don't think I even prepped you for that question, but why wonderful? And then I have a question for you to kind of kick us off in a minute.
Okay. Um, the subject of wonder is it seems like such a minor thing in faith, but when I went through cancer and things, it was I think God took me through that was part of wisdom and love and grace. It was surrendering my fear to something much bigger. We I knew him as a concept. I know him and systems and religion and all that. But when all that isn't enough for what you're going through, uh, he taught me, like, brought me back to even being a kid, because we are as children, we know wonder, like, normally it's who we are. We imagine, we dream, and we see things. We play and we have fun. That's not supposed to stop, really. um, that kind of gets us through times like this with all that craziness that's going on right now. I have to have a bigger picture of what's going on, or else all I'm going to see is what I'm missing, what I could lose, what awful things might happen. And so I was actually in the shower and thinking about the title of what he wanted me to do for this one,
Mhm.
and that's exactly what I saw in my head. It was he wanted wonder to be full, and it was an invitation from him. It was
Yeah.
a blessing and a grace and an inheritance to say it's because we've always said God is wonderful, of course He is, but to say this that I want to be full of wonder, so much so that fear can't get in there, um, bitterness, whatever. There's a lot of fear out there right now.
Yeah.
I just purposely went to the supermarket and just to kind of try and leave a trail of the opposite.
Yeah.
And just there's all the employees are exhausted. I was just here in the coffee shop, and there's nobody else there. And I said, "You guys are doing a fantastic job, and you guys are amazing at this, and so good at this. You're always this." Give them a big tip, and just to bless them because our focus has to shift to something better and greater because
Yeah.
this is going to pass.
Yeah.
And it in the meantime, the way we get through this is taking a breath and saying, "Okay, God, how do you see all this? And how do you see me? And how do you want me to see you?"
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
That
yeah,
is so good. I mean, I mean, it's crazy out there. It's cray out there right now,
yeah,
just with everything that things are changing by the minute, and fear is such rampant right now in everything that's
yeah,
going on because of the coronavirus and stuff. And my first question that I wanted to ask you about was that you said um, in the book as I was reading, you said God said to you, "Your awe of me needs to be bigger than your fear of anything else." And I think what an appropriate timed message for really what we're facing, not just as a nation, but around the globe with this spirit of fear that every church I preached on Sunday, every church in this nation probably preached against fear. But I really talk to us about that because our awe
yeah.
of God needs to be greater than our fear of anything else. So talk to me about that.
That's exactly what the book title is. It is that wonder, that awe. Proverbs and other places say the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, or fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. Um, and I know the words there, phobos in Greek and in Hebrew and things, and it does mean fear, but it's such a bigger concept. It's about an awe. It is not a terror of, oh, he's going to come and destroy me. He didn't release this world, this virus. Um, this world is messed up. It gets stuff. There's people who mess around with bugs and stuff too, and who knows what. Uh, and to know, like, okay, I don't have to default to this end of the world dystopian kind of mindset. I don't have to default to um, my survival instincts. What I can default to is an awe. I say, okay, God, you are bigger than this. I know this is a serious thing. This is something I need to deal with, but I need to sort through all the panic and all the that the enemy's trying to do here. And in the awe of Him, knowing that He's the one who created everything. He made me. When I went through cancer, it was that awe of saying, "You made me. You know me. My life is in your hands. No matter what happens here, I love you. Because I know you love me."
Hmm.
And even that, just that awe of love, you could spend 7 lifetimes just scratching the surface of how much he loves you.
Hmm.
And that's not an exaggeration.
Right.
Um, that's what started to come to me as getting 625 hours of chemo pumped into you is just his love over you. And it's almost like saying, I'm getting poison pumped into me to kill this thing. But I was at the same time saying, God, I receive your love, and I want that push all this stuff. And so this, we want this to go away. We want it to be done already and gone and get back to normal. But there isn't really a normal. This world is what it is,
Hmm.
and the normal is actually who we are in heaven. It's how we're known there, and you get to be that here. It's not that we have to walk around in fear. We get to have life and joy and in the most amazing circumstances in the most amazing ways here. And I'm talking to myself. I just went to the grocery store just to kind of like I said, just to kind of release something. But they were stocking the shelves full of TP. There's no shortage. We're okay. We really are okay. It's going to be all right. This is an opportunity for us to take that awe we have of God and then release that, bless people. This is an amazing couple of weeks right now we have to bless other people. As you were just saying, you were helping out a friend going shopping for her because a little older. I won't include myself in that uh, population that should be really careful.
Yeah.
And So we get to bless them. We get to bless them and receive from them, and to let them know that they are valued, and that we can take care of them. That we can be a nation that is prudent and walks in wisdom and grace and love, and doesn't have to go to an orphan mentality of there's not enough, but
Mhm.
just the opposite. Sons and daughters who say there's more than enough.
Yeah.
And that was a long answer to a short question. I'm sorry.
No,
Um,
no, actually, it's really good. It's really good because I was out this morning on the hunt for TP and bleach for this older woman who really, she's like,
mm,
Pastor Debbie, I went out and I couldn't find anything. And I was like, well, I said,
yeah.
I'll go out for you and I'll see if I can find something on Monday or Tuesday before I'm supposed to fly out on Wednesday to the East Coast. And so I said, I'll try to go see if I can. And if all else fails, I'll give you some of our supply, because that's what I have. But she's like, no, I don't want to take
Yeah.
yours.
Yep.
So I was out. I found bleach for her, but I did not find toilet paper. So that's okay. I still have another day, and you know what? I we have a supply, and that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to help those.
Mm,
Supposed to love our neighbors.
exactly.
She doesn't live next door to me, but she's a
Yeah.
part of our church congregation, and so we do what we can.
Mm,
So this brings me to one of your devotionals was the door of wonder, and in it you talked about the door of fear, the door of peace, and the door of ignorance. And in fact, you said in that devotional piece that as you were looking at that picture, that the door of fear was more inviting actually than the other doors. Can you kind of talk to me about that piece? Because I think that that would really speak to people right now, about what we're facing.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. That was actually kind of it's an allegorical chapter,
Yeah.
but it came out of a dream I had. I
Mm.
actually dreamed of these three doors, and kind of like a hindsight on high places type of dream that I might someday expand on.
I think you should. Let me just interject right here. I think you should just, I was like reading it. So pause. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. But
No, not at all.
as I was reading that chapter, it is the last devotional chapter in your book. But
Yeah,
as I was going through that, I was like, oh, I thought of Hind's feet on Hind's places. I really did. And I thought, this is such a
I appreciate
powerful
it.
message for the anybody, but really, and at any time, but especially now. So okay, go ahead. Sorry, pick back up. So it was a dream that you
No,
actually
not at all.
had.
That's good. Hmm. Hmm. And it was this person who wants to travel on to the next place that she's going, and she sees three lines in front of three large doors. They were in the dream just these ancient doors that looked very different, and then she could see these plaques over them that said what they were, and you would have to comply with what those things were to go through those doors. And the door of peace at first kind of scared her because it was guarded by these massive angels. And from her viewpoint, it looked like they were kind of invasive and being very uh, not socially distant. They're right in her and examining her, and she didn't want that. It was almost frightening to her, like saying, "Wait, why do I have to change? Why do I have to do this?" And so she looked at the other doors, and the fear door um, was uh, fascinating to her because uh, she could. It wasn't so much about becoming fear. It was uh, uh, seeing things from a perspective of not having to face what was really in her heart. So she could just kind of give in to the fears that were already present, and the ones guarding it who were not angels, they were demonic, were just like encouraging her to stay in the fears that she'd grown up with and she had. Um, the third one was an ignorance kind of thing, where in the dream they put on earphones and blinders kind of thing, and the music just kind of droned out the world, and you came into your own world, and you didn't have to see anything or deal with anything. And one of the angels rescued her out of that in this dream, and I relate it in the book, and brought her back and said that's not for her, because they were trying to suck her into these worlds of um, that just given to your deepest fears, given to the panic, given to what the group think, given to what everyone else is doing. But the angel was saying there is so much more. Look at this. She looked more carefully at the piece, and she realized that they weren't hurting anybody. They were removing the chains that were there, and they were removing the wounds and things, and removing. They weren't stealing from her. They were healing her and blessing her. And by the time she goes through this line of angels who are removing chains and healing wounds and binding her up, she feels the best she's ever felt in her life. And then I woke up.
Mhm.
Right, there's the end to it, but I'll let people read it.
Yeah, they need to read it. Don't give it all
Yeah,
away. Don't give it all
yeah,
away.
no, no.
Um,
But it's a transition for anybody who reads it. Yeah,
Yeah. And that's really good. I just was really struck by that because I thought, how often is it that fear is really more inviting than the other things that God is really calling us into, right? So that we
yeah,
stay in position. Like you mentioned the word transition a
yep,
couple of times actually, and that was actually my next question for you because the first devotional in there is called The Winds of Change. And I just recently released a podcast with Madeline James about transition,
mhm,
and we actually recorded that at the end of last year, and it just aired just recently. But really talking about transition, I am a person that doesn't necessarily care for change or transition, but it's a necessary part of life. And
no,
in this
yeah,
devotional, yeah, you know what I'm talking. I mean, people are like that, right? Things change all the time, and but transition
yeah,
is a normal part, and we don't want to get stuck in the hallway
yeah,
of that. And
exactly.
that's I think what that the door to wonder was about. But in the your winds of change, you were talking about living a life worthy of your calling. And so
Mhm.
what does it mean, Rob, to live worthy?
It is a great question. It's something I really went after for a long time because I did not judge myself as worthy enough, and I'm sure there's people listening who understand what I mean by that. You know, my parents are awesome. They're still awesome, uh, but like anything else, you know, you pick up things as a kid, and this perception of I've got to work for acceptance. I've got to perform to be acceptable. Um, and I went in the military as well, and of course that is performance uh, as a cadet, and so you carry that forward with you into your relationship with God. And when I read "Live a Life Worthy," to me, that is working for His acceptance, working for His approval, working endlessly. And I'm judging myself. I'm sure everyone has done this at some point where you do something even if it's a mistake or an outright offense against somebody, and then you're sorry about it, and you put yourself in spiritual jail. It's like, well, that was like a 2 weeker, so God's not going to talk to me for 2 weeks, and so you just take yourself out of a relationship. Yeah, that's not what that means. I um, where that chapter came from was some people for all your life, and some people are just an hour, and this is one of those guys that was just an hour. I was closing up the office, uh, and he pulled in and said, "I need to talk to someone." Like, okay, all right. Um, we went back inside. Everything was turned off. That's kind of important to the story. I turned on the light, of course, but the AC was off and all the systems were off and all that kind of stuff. So we're sitting at the little conference table there, and this man had a super high IQ. You could just tell he's a thinker. And it's anybody who functions like that sometimes can have a hard time letting things go because it doesn't make sense. God doesn't always make sense. Now, when we get there, I know it's all going to make sense in a way. Um, but he was having a really hard time with certain things because God was trying to transition him to something bigger, something better, something more of him, more intimacy, more identity of who he was. I could feel that. I could see that. But I also knew it was not my job to convince him of anything. This guy is too smart. I'm not going to like debate him into this. He's asking, is this real? And what he was asking about was, are miracles real?
Mm,
He knew the Bible probably better than I did. And I understand I have friends who are cessationist or whatever, and all that. I don't debate it. I just want to live where I know he really is. I've seen miracles since I was a kid,
yeah.
and so he's sitting and he kind of throws up emotionally on the table here and just spills his whole life and said, "But there's got to be more. But this doesn't make sense. And this my church says this and this and this. And why doesn't God just bring him in like he did for Elijah?" And um, suddenly, something in my heart just leaped. And that's what we have to watch for. Even right now, in the middle of this virus and everything, watch for the heart leaps. Those
Mm,
moments where God's saying, "This is an opportunity, whether it's just for you or for somebody else." I know you know that what that feels like. I can feel it even now. And I said, he said, "What do you mean?" And I said, ask him for the wind. And our AC ducts are near the ceiling, so that the cool air will fall down, um, and they weren't on. And but I had them say, "God, if you really like that, would you do that?" And a wind started to come up from under the table. For about 10 minutes, it just blew more and more and more. It was just beautiful. It was like a spring wind. It smelled like spring.
I
It was
love
the
it.
most wonderful. And he says, I can't believe it. What am I supposed to do? I said, enjoy it. Just let him talk to your heart. Be blessed. You are a son. You get to be with your father. This isn't you trying to figure out the world, trying to make him uh, approve of you. You are worthy because he is worthy. This comes back to the end of the question was, I can do nothing that way. Living worthy means agreeing with how he sees me. It's agreeing with who he wants to be for me right now. Right at that moment, for this man, he wanted to be a father who showed him a blessing, a miracle, a grace, and the wind. And somebody out there, right now needs to feel that too. And so I know even recorded, people can feel that wind right now.
Yeah, they can.
It happens. Um, and then another way. So when I say live worthy, it is I need to realign my thinking when I recognize I'm in fear, I am in bitterness or whatever. It's not about me atoning for it. It's me aligning myself with how God talks, what he's saying to me, who he wants to be for me. When he says, Rob, I want to be love for you right now. I already know him as love, but that means there's a deeper love available right now. He wants to show me something more. And that's the worthiness is this place he called us to. That's one of the things that should comfort us right now in all the middle of this worldwide thing, this pandemic, is that he knew and designed we're all supposed to be here at this time.
Hmm.
We were made for this moment. It is not a moment to cower. It's a moment to, at the very least, to bless the world with who he has shown you are. We get to do that electronically, if nothing else,
Hmm.
um, or across the street and wave and say, "You're amazing. We're going to get through this," and to encourage. Or there's a piece of wisdom God's given you, um, or whatever. But you are here for this moment, for right now, for a reason,
Hmm.
and it's going to come out of that worth that Jesus has already paid for, that he wants to live with you to the very fullest. And yeah, so that's what that is.
That's so good. And I think too, just in light of everything, I was when I was preaching on Sunday, I was going with the fear not thing, but in the morning on Sunday, God just said, you know what? Let's not fixate on the fear not. Let's fixate
Right,
on that this is the
right.
greatest hour for the church
Yeah,
in
exactly.
this season. And I
Yeah,
was like, okay. And like, it's shower time, right? It's just like when he downloads to me, I mean, that's when you get all your
yeah,
good ideas. That's how you got the title for the book, right?
yes,
In the shower, in the shower.
yep,
But
yep.
and so I kind of was taking on like this is a time for the church to awaken. It's time for the church to rise up. It's time for us to take our place, and it's time for us to really begin to share the good news of the
Yeah.
gospel and to be a blessing and to be an encouragement. And we may have to
Yep.
do it online, but we can stop posting all these fear driven, oh, and now they're doing
Yes.
this and
Yep.
now they're doing that. Instead, we can actually put out there declarations of Psalm
Yep.
91, and we can put out there Isaiah 43 and
Yep.
a lot of other psalms that we could put out there where we can begin to speak life and truth to people
Yep.
and let them experience the awe and wonder
That's
of
right.
the Lord. I want to ask you this question kind of as we end this episode, um, about how we can grow in wonder. In fact, I know it's one of the devotionals in your book,
Hmm.
but practically, when people are like, yes, I need to be more in awe of God and have wonder fill me more than fear. So, what is something, Rob, that people can do practically? I mean, we're all right now supposed to be trapped in our homes and not like going out and talking to people, and restaurants are
Hmm.
closing all over the country, and just different things like that. So, how can we grow in our wonder so that fear gets pushed out and diminished in our life in this time?
Yeah. Coffee. And it's one of the ways he speaks to me. God talks to everyone a little bit differently because everyone does have a different personality, and there's a bunch of personality types. Um, I'm an introvert, feeler, perceiver kind of thing. Um, Somebody else that is more of a structured thinker, decision maker. They're going to hear him a little differently, and they're both valuable. They're both part of the body. I know the places in my heart, my mind, that I need to pay more attention to. You already gave the key. It's okay. I know if I focus on the fear, that's what I'm going to grow in my head, and that's all I'm going to hear. But if I go get a coffee and go for a short drive, I know for me, that's how I'm going to be able to quiet my heart and hear him. Somebody else, it's a picture that pops in your head. Someone else, they are very musical. And so, hey, I keep hearing that song. That's like the fourth time I've heard that song in 2 days. What are you trying to say to me, Lord? You keep seeing the same number. Um, a lot of people have been seeing the 222 or the 1111 and the fours and all that. And there's some corporate thing to that, but there's also like the 1111 thing for me is a certain scripture in Hebrews that's very powerful to me. And I know he keeps reminding me of that, of saying that we're going forward. It's not like it was before. We're going to go forward. It's a good thing. So if there's a scripture that keeps coming back to you, a psalm that you just, man, I keep thinking about that number psalm. And so there's something there for you. I always go back, like if I'm kind of in a fear based mode for a little bit here, he'll throw the number 18 at me. And I'll know, okay, that's Psalm 18. And he'll take you back where he says, I rescue you because I delight in you. And just restores me and says, okay, you love me. And I can restart right there. Everyone has a reset, and this is such a great season to find that reset. One of the really cool things right now, it doesn't seem like it, but it is. You get to find out what kind of relationship you have with them. Because if I'm totally like, I keep going to fear, like, okay, wait a second, I need to let him deepen that relationship so that's not what I keep going to. There's things to deal with, absolutely. There's things to face and to approach in wisdom and logic, but I don't want to do it with fear. And so, somebody out there is hearing just a word repeated. Somebody else is getting a feeling. Some people hear him through a feeling in their bodies, even. So I just find that place that he's calling you and let him talk to you. Let him bring peace to that point, and I promise the wonder will just explode on its own.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. I'm going to give you a minute to think, kind of, I want you to pray us out. I want you to kind of pray against this fear, and that we would see the opportunity before us to really go deeper in the relationship with the Lord. Um, because I think right now that people are like, yeah, this is crazy. Why am I being fearful? Instead, I need to be filled with wonder. And so, just kind of, can you just kind of pray us out of this episode with that, leaving us with
Yeah,
something as a lot of people are being quarantined in their homes?
yeah. Father, I love you because you love me first. I know that. I have the ability, I have the capacity, I have the strength to love you and love others because you love me. I pray that everyone that hears this, that watches this, uh, can experience your love in deeper and deeper ways. It doesn't matter if they've been with you for 50 years, that there is such a renewal of love and grace, of joy, of peace. And it is so great that it overflows to our families, to our friends, to people in grocery stores. Um, I pray that there's somebody walking past somebody who's panicked and just breathe, calms. It's
Mhm.
okay. I bless everyone. It's not so much about casting out the fear as it is displacing it with love and grace and joy. And I bless everyone that's listening and that's watching this with so much of your presence. There's no room for fear. There is no room for
Mhm.
fear. Fear of failing, fear of there not being enough, fear of loss, that there's just no room for them because the reality that there's more than enough, the reality that there is joy all the time available, the reality that you have been given peace and it cannot be taken away, that those realities are exploding everywhere. It's just constant. It is real. It is tangible. It is translating to real life. Um, I just keep coming back to the Second Timothy scripture about just the admonition for all of us to stir up the gifts that have been given to us because we have not been given fear. We've been given power, love, and sound thinking, united hearts, sound minds,
Mhm.
whole souls. We are whole people. Bless everyone in this audience, Father, to have a whole soul, body, soul, mind, everything together, heart, uh, that is just totally, completely yours. I bless them in Jesus' name. Amen.
Mhm. Thank you so much for that, Rob. Could you let
My
my
honor.
viewers and listeners know, where can we connect with you? How can they get a copy of your book?
Mhm.
Wonderful, but you have other devotionals as well. So how can they connect with you? How can they
Yeah.
get your books?
Yeah. The easiest thing to get the books is Amazon. That's where I've uploaded them. The last name is Coscia. It's unique. So just put that in there, Rob Kasha, and the books will pop up. The I'm on Instagram and Twitter and all that kind of thing too, but the most I've been doing is Facebook regularly, and I do kind of a devotional every day. I have you can find me on the same thing, COSCIA on Facebook, and I do have a blog as well for people who just want to get it as an email every day. If you go to the WordPress, it's called Monday Jesus. I love that phrase. It's another one I got in the shower. So because it's easy. It's usually easy to follow God on a Sunday,
Yeah.
but I need Monday Jesus.
Yes, that's good. I like that.
And today is actually May. Yeah, yeah. And so everything the bigger devotionals I do on Facebook and everywhere else, all the main ones are on that devotional site, WordPress, Monday Jesus, and you can get those as an email. So
Okay. Wonderful. I think that's wonderful. Well, I just want to thank you for listening to Dare to Hear the podcast, where we
thank you.
encourage you to dare to hear the voice of God. Thank you for listening today. I'm Debbie Kitterman. If you were encouraged in any way, we would be honored if you would subscribe to our podcast or our YouTube channel. And we'd also ask that you would leave a review and share it across your social media with your friends and your family to help us get the word out, not just about the Dare to Hear podcast, but also about Rob and what he's doing. And I just really want to speak that we have not been given a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind, and that God has promised that we're to fear not. And so, as we walk ourselves through this pandemic that's going on around the globe, that we would be filled with wonder and not fear, and that we would actually be people that dispense wonder and awe and love and the display the power of God everywhere we go in the light of what's happening around the world today. So, again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week on another episode of Dare to Hear the podcast.
I'm not in the thunder, I'm not in the rain, I'm not in the winds of the hurricane. Look to me, I'm drawing you near. I have called you, did it hear? 'Cause there's peace in my presence, so do not fear. Oh, do not fear. I have called you, did it hear? I'm not in the shaking that shatters the rocks. I'm not in the fall of the mountaintops. I'm not in the fire and consuming flame. I'm in the whisper that calls